Good morning everybody, welcome back to another video. If you are here, then you probably want to find out what's going on with the new Fujifilm X-H2S firmware version 7.1. Fujifilm have also released a firmware version 5.1, I think it is, for the X-H2. I'm not going to be concentrating on that in this video because I predominantly use that camera for stills only. This is my main video camera, so I just wanted to get an idea of what this firmware update is about. Now, I'm currently doing this on the driveway of my house because the back garden is all lawn and it's wet and I didn't want to do it back there. So I've got a driveway here and I'm just going to be running back and forward doing a typical kind of autofocus test. So we currently are on version 7.1. I updated it last night, it went through quite smoothly, and the autofocus settings are what you would expect to see straight out of the box. So I think it's +2 and 0. I'm not dialing in any other settings because a lot of people talk about out of the box autofocus settings, especially when they're comparing to Sony and Canon. Now, just as a little bit of a context and a backdrop, when version 6 came out back in, I think it was May, the autofocus algorithm kind of went down the toilet, and Fujifilm tried to fix that later with the version 7 release, and I think Fujifilm actually flushed it down the toilet at that point. Now, this is going back to May and June time. Since then, people have been waiting for autofocus. My X-H2S has been out of commission since then, until I actually downgraded the firmware to version 1.03, and that's the only time I was able to use this camera for video work, because anything beyond that, I just felt like autofocus wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing. So I have upgraded to version 7.1. And I will be testing to see if we can downgrade from this. I hope that I can, because I don't want to be stuck on version 7.1 if the autofocus has not improved. But I'm hoping it has. A general kind of idea from the internet and Facebook and other YouTube videos is people are saying that it is improved. But I'm going to hazard a guess and say it's probably still not as good as version 1.03. But we're going to find out. So this test is going to be quite straightforward. I'm going to be walking backwards in and out of the frame. You get an idea of whether the autofocus, number one, keeps up with me, and whether there is any pulsing. I think that's two main ways of testing autofocus. So right now you should see my face in focus. I'm using eye tracking on my right eye, which is this one over here. And there is no pulsing from what I can see looking straight into the screen. So that is my house back there. It would be typically pulsing back and forward on version 7, but I don't see that at the moment. If I go a little bit closer, yeah, it looks like my face is staying in focus. And the other way to test autofocus is, of course, when I'm moving back and forward, how quickly does it actually keep up with my face or my eye? So I'm going to start walking backwards to and from the camera, and let's just see how that looks. I'm going to walk away. It should keep me in focus. It's going to be difficult for you guys to know because I am using the 18mm f1.4 lens. Just to give you an idea, I am using an ND filter. This is filmed at f1.4 because when you have a lens like this, you're not going to be stopping it down. Mostly, I think most of the time people are going to be using this at f1.4. So this lens has got a linear motor in it, so it should be keeping up with the autofocus in the camera really well. So the lens is not going to be a bottleneck. If there is a struggle with the autofocus, it is going to be purely in the camera. So let's just have a look. Okay, so I'm going to be doing a quicker walking test now. All right, just going to improve my speed, to increase my speed a little bit. All right. It's actually really cold outside. It's like one of the coldest days of the year so far. All right, going out the frame, walking by. I don't know if it actually caught me there in time. Let me do it again. And it's really important that when we do these tests, we're not biased. I love Fujifilm. I love the cameras. I love the color science. But I really want to be brutally honest as well, because people are spending thousands of pounds on a camera like this, and it's important that you have an honest review. This camera is still over £2,000. You could probably buy a Canon R6 Mark II and get a really decent zoom lens for about the same price as the 18mm f1.4. So at this price point, Fujifilm really need to get their act together and make sure the customers don't feel like they have to jump from one camera system to the other. This is a reasonable speed, and a camera should be able to track me. Okay, it's too cold out here. Let's get inside and have a look at it on the computer. Okay, so we're back inside and I'm just looking through the release notes for this firmware update. I'm not going to read everything, but so first of all, F-Log 2C has been added, and that just gives you an expanded color gamut. So I think, I mean, I don't do a crazy amount of color grading. I'm not a colorist, but I think that just allows you to play with the colors a little bit more than the previous version. So that's a welcome addition. I'm sure people are going to review that, but I'm not going to talk about that here. Time code sync settings. Now that might be something that will benefit me, because sometimes I do use the X-H2S and the X-H2 for multi-camera setup. So that might be something that I look at. But if I scroll down to section 3, it says, the AF algorithm has been partially revised to improve focusing accuracy and subject tracking performance. Now, I was saying this outside. I don't know why it's partially revised. Is it because Fujifilm felt that it didn't need a complete overhaul and it was just like a minor tweak? I don't know. But judging by what I have seen, I've looked back at the clip that I recorded outside, and on the whole, I have to say it's massively improved from version 7, because version 7 was just unusable. Even without eye tracking, having a square in the middle of the screen and your face in the square, it was not keeping up. And I've actually got a clip which I'm gonna put on, showing you how bad my experience was with a paid shoot that I was doing, and I couldn't use that clip in the video. Thankfully, I had other clips to work with. Okay, so here you can see me talking into the camera, and on the whole, doesn't look too bad. That looks quite good. If you're looking at the house in the background, you can see that there is some hunting going on. Keep an eye on that back window just here, and there you go. There's ever so slight bit of pulsing going on. But honestly, I think my Canon R6 Mark II also does this, but because it's so insignificant when it comes to other cameras, because overall the autofocus is so good, I never notice it that much, and it's not really an issue. If you're looking at this now, you can see that actually there is probably a noticeable amount of hunting going on. Maybe I do need to dial in my settings a little bit more, but honestly, I shouldn't have to. So as much as it is a little bit of a distraction, I don't think it's a massive amount of distraction, because people aren't going to be looking at that back window over there. They are going to be looking at my face, and my face looks like it's in focus, so it's not the end of the world. Last time when I'd recorded a video about this, I said it was unusable. Based on this firmware, I would say that this is definitely usable, especially for talking head videos and things like that. Is it usable when you've got a client in the frame? I think you can get away with it. Maybe we can dial in some of the settings and see how that goes. Now, the tracking is definitely working here, right? It's definitely tracking me. Because remember, I talked about autofocus in 2 parts. I talked about how, number one, the camera's got to be able to track you. It's got to be able to recognize you. It's got to be able to see who you are in the frame. It's got to recognize that you're a human being. It's got to be able to track your eyes, and it's doing that. So I'm in focus here. But what the camera is struggling to keep up with is it's keeping up with me moving. Now, that is probably to do with the fact that I am not dialing in kind of specific settings into the camera. And I can do that, and I'm probably going to do a test later where I'm dialing in settings, and we can talk about that. But I feel like it's jumping, and it's not a smooth rack in focus, which it really should be. 2024, you know, stack sensor, X trans 5 sensor. Can you see that there? It kind of, can you? So there is a little bit of hunting. So I'm in the frame. That's not too bad. I mean, if you keep looking at my face, there you go, I went out of focus there, but I did move really quickly. And I think that probably is to do with dialing the settings in and making the camera be a little bit more responsive. And I think that's part of the problem. Fujifilm put so many settings into their camera that the average person are probably thinking, well, what is all this? What does this even mean? I remember when I first got a Fujifilm X-T4, I didn't know the difference between tracking sensitivity and tracking speed, I think it is, or the autofocus speed. I just couldn't figure out what the difference was. And I can imagine that a lot of people are going to be struggling with that. But honestly, I think you do have to dial in your settings a little bit so that you can get the camera to behave in the way that it needs to for your use case. Should you have to? Honestly, I don't think so. I think Fujifilm probably overthink all of their settings a little bit, and they're probably thinking, well, we need to give our customers, you know, the ability to stay locked on for longer, or we need to give our customers the ability to switch between one subject to the other if another subject comes in. And that's all fair enough, but I think also simplicity has a certain value, especially when you're doing work with clients. You don't want to be messing about with changing settings all the time. So yeah, look, honestly, I don't want to make this video too long. This is a very, very welcome update from Fujifilm. I'm really pleased that they've done this. I waited a long time for this to get fixed. I was using version 1.03 because I felt like in order for this to be usable, for the camera to be usable, I needed to be on version 1.03. And I sacrificed the red kind of box on the screen, which I'm getting now. There's a massive red box. I know I'm recording, right? And I can set my front dial back to ISO again, and I've got Real at Ace if I wanted to record, and now I've got f-log2c for that wider color gamut. So it's all welcome. I felt like it was worth waiting. Does this make the camera operate in the way that it should? Honestly speaking, I have to say no. But can I get away with it? Yes. Am I going to be able to deliver videos to my clients? Yes. And I think it's really important that I say that, because we can get bogged down, especially as creatives, right? We want everything to be perfect. We can get bogged down in, oh no, there's a bit of a hunting there and it shouldn't be doing that, and my Sony A7S3 is perfect. And I think sometimes we just have to make do with what we have and make it work. We can often just blame our tools far too much. So look, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope this test was helpful for you. If you want to see more, if you want me to dial in some settings, then I can do that, and you can have a look at those, and I can talk about how I set my camera up if you want. But this for me is pretty much okay. I don't have people running in and out of the frame. That was a bit of an extreme test as far as I'm concerned. But if you're like me, then this is workable. It's okay. It's not going to be bad. And thank you, Fujifilm, for fixing this to the best of your ability. Clearly, there are issues in your R&D department, and I hope that you're going to get that sorted. I don't want to have to buy an X-H2S because of improved autofocus. I just want my camera to work. And I've still got the X-H2S, I've got the X-H2. I've recently also added the X100-6 to my lineup. I don't think there's a firmware update for that, but I'm not bothered. I don't do video on that camera, and it works perfectly for me. The X-T5 is a bit of a sore point because I know Fujifilm haven't updated the firmware on that, and I think that's something that's going to be coming a little bit later. And I can understand the X-H2S and the 2 are obviously their flagship line cameras, and a lot of people are using them for more professional work, whereas X-T5 is probably just kind of a walk-around lens for most people. I can't imagine people using burst photography on the X-T5 or long talking head videos with that camera. People probably do, but I imagine that it's more of a hobby camera than it is professional camera. I might be wrong. Don't shoot me for that. But look, leave a comment in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about my test. Tell me if you think it's improved. Tell me if you want me to do a particular test which will help you. I'm happy to do that. As always, your comments are always welcome. I love sharing these videos with you. I love filming and producing these videos. I think I get a certain satisfaction from just talking to myself. Maybe that's just a sign of madness for me. But thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.